Welcome, welcome. It's good to see you all. We're on our second to the last chapter this week, chapter 19, for You Are the Happiness You Seek. And I'm very happy to have a co-host this week. I made a little oops and I didn't forget. I thought I had filled all the substitute spots where people had other plans that they needed to cancel their co-hosting spot. And I had an email from Ilse in July, and I missed it. So Jenny has graciously stepped forward to co-host today. Thank you, Jenny, for being here and willing to step in on a moment's notice.
You're welcome, Bill. I have to confess that I it's a little while since I read this chapter, so but we'll manage very well, I think.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll make a go of it, and
I'm sure we will. Yes,
and it'll be good. So anyway, thank you all for being here and for sticking out for all of these 19, staying with us for these 19 chapters. I don't mean sticking it out. It's really been fun. It's been awesome. And I have picked a new book for our next book study. I think I'll announce it next week, though, because I don't want to give it away too early. But I'm pretty sure we have picked a new book for our next book study. And William was saying, I hope we do something to, keep the group together. Well, we will. And it's going to be a great series. I think you're going to love it. And I'll send an announcement out in an email with a link to the book on Amazon. And this week, we're looking at the all-pervasive spirit. And this is a really different chapter from almost all the rest of them. It really is speaking more about a lot about our human experience and how the essence of ourself is always it's trying to leak through. And it actually is leaking through, and we call it by another name, of course. But it's really a great chapter. I'm looking forward to sharing it with all of you. And the thing that really stands out for me on this, it's page 157 in the book. Is somehow the title pages are never numbered. And I like this little quote at the very top of the page, Jenny. First it's a little bit like a riddle. I'm going, what does this mean? Right? It's got a little kind of a riddle written in it.
Yes, and it really relates to the idea that only awareness is aware. Sometimes we think this body mind is aware, but actually this body mind's only a machine, and it's awareness that is aware. And this is what Ibn Arabi is saying. I've created perception in you only in order to be the object of my perception. So it's awareness being aware of itself. And it's a very beautiful expression of that, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This reminds me a little bit of what happens when if you're a Course in Miracles student and you read the Course and it makes a statement like this: I have created perception in you only, and immediately the you is the person. When you're reading it as without the understanding, the localized you says, "Oh, it's talking to me, Bill," and we miss the context and the content of what's being pointed to. That's so often done in A Course in Miracles. I wrote a blog this week because of Amy Habel. She suggested that we have a discussion about level confusion. And so I wrote a blog. It's going out today or tomorrow on level confusion. And this kind of reminds me of that, because when I first read that statement, I'm going, who is it talking to? And then it sort of unfolded itself in the understanding. And I think it's because we're so much, in these book studies, and we're so much in the content of the truth, and really holding the attention is held as the awareness. The attention is held as the true self in enough enough I don't know, it kind of a reestablishing or an establishing of our true nature, so it's not so easily drawn into the personal self when a statement like this happens.
Yes, and that really reminds me of what sometimes happens in traditional advisor, and you're told not to use the word "I," because if you're referring to the body mind, and it leads to all sorts of peculiar situations arising. Like you have to say, oh, this body mind is going to the shops to get some milk and cheese, and it sounds a bit weird, but people do that. And for a little short while I was studying with people who did, and I found it a bit ridiculous in the end, I must admit. But really, what we're saying here is that it's fine to use the word "I" to refer to the body mind when it's appropriate. But at the same time, as we're using it, we can remember what I really is. That I is the universe.
Yeah. Yeah, I love some of the descriptions we're going to get into as we go into this chapter. Is there something on this first page that stands out for you?
Yes, I think one thing immediately is that when he says we begin to feel that we share our being with other people and animals. But why should we stop there? Why draw a boundary around all sentient beings? After all, that everything that is exists. Existence is the common factor in everything, be that a person, a planet, a mountain, a body, a thought, an atom, and so on. And I think that's important. Sometimes we say, well, I've realized that I share my being with everyone I meet, but in a way that just that statement is quite limiting. I share my being with everything, not every person, not every animal, with everything, absolutely everything.
Yeah.
I think that's so important.
It is, and it's helpful too. It's not only, yeah, it's important, and it's also intimate. It brings us to an intimate relationship with all of life. Totally, and I mean I say they. What I mean is we should teach this in the first grade. This should be something that is in children's books, so that we come in connected to life in a whole different way. Because this chapter is almost like it's like an owner's manual for a way to experience life at a awakened or at the highest level. I would say even just at a higher level. It's just it's like an owner's manual.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh, it's good. Let's see. At the very last paragraph, he says, however, just as no character or object on the screen, he's talking about being is the shared background
Mm.
of experience, and just as no character or object on the screen actually stands out from the screen with its own independent existence, but only seems to. Likewise, no person or thing actually stands out from the background of infinite being with a status of its own. So as we look at that context, everything is our shared being. Everything,
Yes. Yes.
and it's
Um,
not coming from a personal reference, coming from a shared isness.
yes. And and that applies, well, whatever is going on, even when we feel, oh, what's going on is awful. All of that is still myself, all of it. And somehow that puts things into quite a different context. I mean, for us in the UK, some pretty awful things are going on, which are going to have some very serious consequences for everyone in the UK over the next year. And yet, all of that is myself. All of that is the activity of consciousness, and in some inconceivable sense, it's all natural.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, and so are the world leaders and decisions and all of that.
Yeah.
Craziness is somehow part of the plan, and that's beyond our that's our I don't know. I don't need to know. Somehow we think we need to know. Why are you doing this?
Mhm.
And yet we don't.
We can't know, but it's more than that, you know. Even the ones doing it don't know, so they
Yes.
have no idea why they're doing it.
Right. 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 Well, let's turn the page to 158. And I, do you have something on that you would like to share from that page? While you're looking,
Yeah,
I'm just gonna.
yes. Oh,
Oh,
so
there is.
sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes,
This is someone, and I must say, Jenny, I am so grateful for your saying yes. This is someone who has no preparation for today as a co-host at all. So, thank you for being available in that way. It's just you're just a total amazing yes person, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, yes, this sentence, likewise in reality, no personal thing emerges out of infinite being with its own discrete and independent existence. And that's important because the word independent is really important there. Um, because nothing is independent. Everything is completely interconnected. And sometimes we imagine ourselves to be independent from the world in some sense, but we're not in any sense independent from the world. But even the concept of Jenny and the concept of Bill, um, even those are just superimpositions onto what what we experience, what we see, what we hear, what we feel. In other words, it's the mind making sense of experience. But as you remember, Don Hoffman says the thing in itself, and it's a reference to Kant, the thing in itself is utterly different from what we see, and there's such a direct applicability, because me and myself is completely different from this body mind that I see. It's utterly different. It is universal. This body mind is just something that the mind has put together, has produced, with all its memories. It's created a character out of nothingness, ultimately.
I love that talk that you had with Don at the conference. That was amazing. What to recognize? I mean, he gave a clear path of understanding the the distinction between the interface, this body mind suit, and like whatever this vibrational frequency or whatever the essence or the nature of the true self is not even connected as a flesh and bones element.
Yes, it's completely, utterly, utterly different.
Yeah. Or a thinking mind. It's not even. I mean, it's just not connected at all with what the image that we're experiencing. It's so funny.
Yes, and there's not even a mapping. That's what mathematicians called a homomorphism. There's not even a homomorphism between the body mind and what we really are. So pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
And provable as well. So
I like that part. I mean, to me, it's astonishing what I'm hearing the two of you discussing at the conference. It was astonishing information. It was fun. And there was a comment. Let's see. Patty made a comment at 12:06 that I thought was great. Spirit, love, created awareness light in order to come into being and be seen and expressed. So spirit is back of awareness, perception. And I think that even using the term spirit is a concession. It's not even spirit. Spirit is the name. It personifies something that can't be named.
Yes. I mean, the only way we can express anything is by dividing things up. And it's something to remember that whenever we're using words, words are a dividing instrument. They can't be anything other than that. They can point to the one, but in themselves they are a dividing instrument.
Yeah. Labels were any kind of word. I mean, that's why is too many words even. Patty said, okay, so there's a discussion in the chat, but let's go to the question Rana has at 12:18. What about the term arises in awareness? I think Patty is saying that infinity, spirit, is indivisible, so there can be no parts. It is always whole and interconnected, even in the appearance of seeming separation. And so there's a discussion about this. What about the term arises in awareness? So go ahead, Jenny.
So, again, arises in awareness is also a concession. because it suggests that there is something separate from awareness that arises in it. Really a better way of thinking of it, or a clearer way of thinking of it, is to think in terms of waves in the ocean. And it makes no sense to separate out the wave from the ocean. So you can say the wave rises up in the ocean, in a way, but to think that the wave is any different from the ocean is a nonsense.
Well, yeah, and I think I mean I can see what Patty's attempting to say is this. I mean, I do it all the time. You're using words to point to the wordless.
Yes.
And the only thing I like to take the Christian language off of these conversations using Spirit, Holy Spirit, God, Jesus, all of those things. They have an old sort of a misappropriation or a misdirection of even the pointing gets misdirected into a dogma, a religiousness, and so I like to take even Spirit off because it's loaded. It's like using the word soul. Well, does that mean your soul did that? And that's another one that is just it's an add-on to and a fragmentation of presence, which is still, not it.
Yes.
So let's look at page the next section, the revelation of beauty. Just beautiful statements from Rupert, where he talks about in that first paragraph, our shared reality is not confined to people and animals. When we stand in awe in front of nature, become absorbed in a piece of music, are moved by the sight of an object, or enjoy a delicious meal, the distinction between ourself and the object dissolves. We experience the reality we share with that object. That is the experience of beauty.
Yes, and it doesn't have to be a beautiful object. It can be anything at all, and anything seen from the perspective of our true nature takes on beauty, can take on beauty. Obviously there are some objects which, if we're lost in experience, are so beautiful that they suddenly take us back in a very deep way to our true nature, and those are the true works of art, and really very beautiful pieces of music or beautiful pieces of art, poems, things like that can do that, but still just the smallest things. Just opening the curtains in the morning and looking outside. There's just beauty everywhere I look. There is just beauty.
Yeah, and there's a I like this one sentence that he uses just below the first paragraph on page 159, where he says, when we experience beauty, we are tasting the reality that we share with the object. And it doesn't have to be beauty. He goes on to say further in this chapter, the experience of relationship, sexuality, all of those things is the experience of tasting the reality of our essence.
Yes, yes, truth, love, beauty, truth in the sense of sudden understandings, kind of that dissolves the subject object duality. Beauty dissolves it, love dissolves it, all of these. And so in a sense, I think for me that's what's meant by truth, love, and beauty all being attributes of what we are, of our true nature.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the kind of the misdirected, uh, one of the misdirected uh, sort of cultures that arises up in this idea that having like using sex as a way to reach that experience, and these gurus set up their sex uh,
Yes.
uh, saying this is getting us all closer to God. I think that's a sort of a misappropriation of this idea. I think Osho may have been uh, guided in that direction a little bit. I've heard. I love his some of his books on speaking about the tantric expressions in that way, and I also think that he might have got a little off path.
Yes, I think, well, there are so many ways one can get off path, but I think all of them ultimately uh, amount to some kind of retention of the subject object duality. So if they're
Yeah,
two people having sex, then that's duality.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's that connected. It's almost like the moment is stolen by the physical expression of it. It's that moment of that occurs.
The moment of dissolving,
Yeah,
yes.
right. It
Yeah.
gets hijacked by the personal self identity.
And some idea of end gaining. I'm going to do this in order to establish myself,
Yeah,
or whatever. Any kind of end gaming,
yeah,
end gaining is gets in the way.
right. And it also happens with addictions, other addictions, food, drugs, whatever. Could be a hobby.
Yes, yes. I mean,
Amy,
sometimes people use drugs as a way of sort of seeing beyond our normal way of seeing, and that's fine if they want to do that. But if they get if that's their only way of getting there, then that's not what this teaching is about. It can show them something that they haven't been able to see before, and can be quite helpful, I think. Certainly some of my friends have said that. It helpful to enable them to make sense of what the spiritual teachers are saying.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
And Amy referenced when Rupert talks about beauty at 1223. On the next page, he attempts to explain in a way beyond words. Beauty is known without words. It is experienced as a tasting of reality. And I like what you added, Jenny, that it's not just something that's beautiful. It can be, you know, anything. It can be
Yes.
something that's disgusting. It has to be the same.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. It's almost the being alive and experiencing experience itself. It is beauty.
I, I'm finding that's available in my own experience. Man, I've never loved life more.
Yes.
than now, and it seems to be an expanding, just as a kind of a checking in with the Bill Free character. It seems to be an expanding appreciation for everything.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's great. It says on page 160, the second paragraph from the top, we have become so accustomed to perceiving reality through the filter of our minds. The only way it is possible for us to experience anything that we believe and feel, that the fragmentation and separation that we experience in the world is a real quality of the world. Such is the intimate and participatory nature of the mind in the world, that the world appears to conform with our belief about it.
Yes, yes. And this is really just what we were talking about earlier, that we can only perceive the interface. We can't perceive things as they are. Yeah.
Yeah. He uses at the bottom of that paragraph, he quotes William Blake, and then he uses an old Christian, almost like, I think it comes from a hymn. When the sun rises, do you not see around? Well, let me back up. It says William Blake imagines a conversation in which he tries to explain to his materialist friends the idea that there are no discrete, independently existing objects or selves, but rather a single, eternal, infinite, and indivisible reality. What? It will be questioned. When the sun rises, do you not see a round disk of fire somewhat like a guinea? Oh, no, no. I see an innumerable company of the heavenly host crying, Holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty.
Yes.
So he's speaking about a totally different a different paradigm depending on where one is looking from.
Yes, yes. And of course, uh, we see the world in terms of forms, and we give names to all of those forms, and our body minds interact with the objects in the world. But that doesn't mean to say that we can't feel the reality of them, and of our body minds and all that is, in that completely different way as one indivisible whole.
Yeah. Well, that's um, as you become mature, as you become established in the understanding, it sort of has a way of permeating your body mind experience. So it sees things different.
Yes, yes, it does. There are times during the day when we need to think of things as objects. We need to manipulate things as objects. But there are many times during the day when we can just allow experience to flow without any kind of division into those names and forms. Just the joy of experiencing.
Hmm. I like to do that with mistakes. You know, when I forget something or I hit my head, or I like to pause and have appreciation for mistakes as well. Bring it all in. You know what I mean?
Yes, yeah. There's no need to leave anything out. at all, but just ordinary things, just like when you're moving from one room into another, and you're feeling the movement of your body. You're feeling the touch of the door handle. You're seeing all the changing sights as you go from one room to the next. Seeing them just for the first time. It's another way of looking at it, because it always is for the first time. We never can. Our minds can't see the totality of what our eyes are capable of revealing, and so each time we walk from one room to another, it's going to be different, and that's quite a stunning thing to think about. And it's a lovely exercise to try as well.
Yeah, that sounds like a good exercise.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask you something that I just got a question that came in my own mind. You know, the UK, the sterling dropped like 5% yesterday.
Yes.
How did Jenny experience take that in with this application we're speaking about?
Initially, there was just this enormous shock, because, of course, we'd heard all the speeches that Liz Truss had made, and thought, well, you know, this is just a politician saying, I'm going to do all these things in order to get elected. And so you kind of just dismiss it. And then the mini budget, instantly I listened to the mini budget, and it was like a sort of bombshell, because it broke all economic rules. So what flooded in was initially my understanding of economics, and my recognition of the impact of that on everyone in the UK. And I said to Richard, you know, I just can't understand this, because why would you, as Prime Minister and Chancellor, I think he was just basically a puppet. I think Kwasi Kwarteng was doing what he was told. Why would you do this and alienate every grouping? You'd alienate all your Conservative voters, because all of their savings are going to be eroded, and they recognise that. You alienated the farmers, even, strangely, because they saw what was wrong with getting rid of the green provisions. It alienated all the ecological people, obviously alienated all what's called the Red Wall. And I thought, how could there's no one other than the ultra rich. And even them, most of them that I listened to didn't support it, and they were horrified too. And I thought, how can this happen? And then somehow what kicked in was, oh, this is just what's happening. It's just a wave in the activity of consciousness. It's a great big tidal wave, probably not confined to the UK either. It's just a wave that's passing through, and no one has a clue what they're doing or why they're doing it. And so, yeah, and then it passed. So it was, it was just a bit of reasoning to start with, and then it passed, and I got on with what I was doing, which was preparing for the next Living in Not Knowing podcast and thinking about those things, and just perfectly happy. Obviously, it's going to affect me personally along with everyone else, but that's just how things are.
Hmm. Well, I mean, I apologize for. I don't really apologize, but if to catch you, I wanted to really catch the moment of someone who really follows this understanding, and that response feels like everyone's response. Every that would be my response. Like when I see the news and I see some stupid thing that's done, I'm going, "What the hell is that happening for?" And then I sit with the "what the hell" moment, and
There's nothing wrong with the what the hell
right,
moment. It's totally natural. It's natural for our minds to reason. It's what they do. And yeah, so we respond in that way. So it's not a, you know, it's not really a negative response. It's a questioning. This is amazing. That's there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Trying to think of reasons. I mean, we tried to think of scenarios which might explain it, that there might be some deeper reason. Someone else manipulating Liz Truss, perfectly possible. And there's all sorts of different things that could be going on. We'll never know what
yeah,
there is, but we don't need to feel entangled in it.
that's the
I
key.
think that is very different
Yeah.
to feel it's like a personal attack on me. It's going to make my life impossible. It's going to make my life difficult over the next year or whatever it is. It's not necessary to feel it that way, because it isn't.
Mm,
It isn't that way.
right.
It's just
Well,
what's happening.
the important, I think the important part of this is to see any energy, any reaction, any grievances lingering, and and those too are fine. That too is perfectly fine, and just stay just a little bit at bay, and then also include all of that as this is all in the understanding when you love all things, including stupid decisions,
Yes,
stupid
yes, yes.
statements that cause the market to go south for everyone.
Yeah, yes. It, there's a difference between taking it personally and taking it and seeing it impersonally, and it doesn't mean that you're not horrified by it. Being horrified by it is not a personal reaction. It's a logical reaction.
Yeah,
And well, it can also be an emotional reaction, um, feeling feeling the difficulty that many people are going to be in over the winter.
mm,
So yeah, there's a lot of misunderstanding about negative emotion. We should never have negative emotion. No, that's wrong. Human body minds do experience negative emotion. It's not something that's wrong. It's something that's completely natural. Where it causes real suffering is if it's personal. And if by personal, I mean where it's predicated on the belief to be a separate entity.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is it is a navigating this teaching so that it's embodied as an experience. It's a life experience. It does change how you filter and respond to things that happen in the world.
Yes, it does. And I can certainly remember it in my own case. There was a time, must have been, I suppose, back in the 70s, when inflation in the UK went to over 20%. Not many people remember that, I guess. Quite old.
Oh, I remember that.
And I remember taking that very personally, being upset, and I was doing econometric modeling at the time for my work, and so I was upset most of the time because I was actually using these figures, and but also feeling the impact on me,
Oh yeah, the
and
personal self view.
a very, very personal reaction to that. And this time, although inflation's not that high, but various other reasons, the situation's actually worse. It, yeah, it just flows over.
Yeah. There was a question that Joan had at 1227. Does the object, the tree, the person, object, share its unity as a way of perceiving me?
There is no object, you see, and there's no me either. Um,
There is no me. Sorry. This is just an avat. This is just nothing. It's doing its thing, but it's not you.
Yes. So there's there's an idea that some scientists have, or I think this is sort of generally dying now, called panpsychism, where the idea is that objects, insentient objects, the tables and chairs, have their own consciousness. In other words, consciousness is in objects, and therefore objects experience things. Well, no, it's not. It's not like that. It's uh, objects. You can say, as Rupert does, objects are in consciousness, but even that is a concession, because actually there's no objects at all. Objects are a creation of mind in
Yeah.
order to explain experience.
Well, that goes along with your talk with Donald Hoffman at the conference when, I mean, objects are just physical matter. Is just is an interpretation that this interface is having with something that isn't actually there. I mean,
Yes.
in form, it's an energy, and that's not even true.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, that was brilliant. There's as we look on page 163 as we move along, it Rupert's talking about the tasting of nature's eternity, and he says that for the apparently at the bottom of the page on 162, he says first he says we are taken to eternity. For the apparently separate self, this collapse of the distinction between itself and the other feels like a death. So, let me back up. He's talking about the experience that we were just discussing. In sexual intimacy, all one's disparate energies are gathered together in the intensity of the moment, suspending the thinking process which habitually divides the intimacy of experience into the subject-object relationship, and through which the apparently separate self escapes the now. There is just the moment. No self, no other, no body, no world, no lover, and no beloved. Not even a moment. For without reference to thought, there is no experience of time. We are taken to eternity. For the apparently separate self, this collapse of the distinction between itself and the other feels like a death. Of course, in reality, an illusion cannot die. It simply ceases to veil its reality. However, the ego does not know this. Thus, what it experiences as death is reality, the shining forth of our shared being. It is the experience of love. This is why love and death are so closely related in art and literature. I just love that kind of that flow, that distinction of that flow that is described, and this is why when we have these temporary things that occur, no matter what it is, even the startle has to be that that startled what the hell has to be part of it.
Yes, yes. It's and these moments that he's referring to, so sexual intimacy, listening to music, looking at a painting or something. You know, when Cezanne says, I wanted to give people a taste of nature's eternity. And all of those things, those are little examples, they're little glimpses that everyone has, whether they're following a spiritual path or not. They're little glimpses that people have throughout their lives. And they are, in a way, those glimpses are what are leading people back, because those are the times when there's no separation. There's just unity, there's just happiness, there's all the qualities of the absolute coming together at once: love, beauty, peace, freedom, happiness, all of it.
Mm, yeah, yeah. It's awesome. It's
And
awesome to
so
have this.
once people have experienced some of those, that can then lead them to a spiritual path.
Yeah. Amy, you mentioned this content on page 161. Do you want to come on and share what you're talking about? Do you have it available?
Let's see, page 161.
You wrote about it at 1245. Perhaps include this discussion to include
Oh,
RS on page 161, his understanding of the restorative power of impersonal anger. I love that. Yeah.
yeah.
What's coming to you on that?
Well, that's partly why I asked you guys to answer it. I mean, it's what comes for me is I have to think about it a little bit more.
Okay.
It's movement. It restores. What does it restore one to? It restores one to another level of awareness of, he says, how naive of me to have imagined that the price of beauty was anything less than oneself.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, the impersonal, speaking about the impersonal power of anger, I've heard Rupert call it
Sacred outrage.
What?
Sacred outrage.
Sacred outrage. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
When it's impersonal, it has a ringtone. It has an experience that doesn't. It's just the facts, and it doesn't have. When it's impersonal, it doesn't have a personal response either, and it also has something I like the word sacred because it's something that feels like it's helping. If there's anger at someone else or something else, it feels like it's helping everyone and not just you to be stated.
Yes, it's a natural response to whatever experience is occurring in that moment, and I think it can bring harmony. It might bring the opposite, because sacred outrage may, if you're in a situation where you can influence something, may lead you to violence, and sacred violence, in other words. Not very often, but it could do. So it's not necessarily going to lead to harmony, but it's it's going to be natural. It's going to tend towards the natural order of things.
I almost look at it in terms of my Chinese 5-element theory. It's kind of like the spring, when things begin to move upward and outward. That kind of sacred anger is a form of movement. It's a form of energy that releases the status quo and gets things flowing again.
Oh, that's beautiful, Amy. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's such an important point, that the spiritual path doesn't say there should be no anger. You should be completely neutral. You should be completely calm, no energy. It doesn't say that at all. It allows for complete freedom, but a natural freedom which is not predicated on the idea of being a separate entity.
Nice.
What a lovely example, Amy. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Let's see. What else would you want to look at on page like 164?
Where have we got to? 164. Let's have a look.
I have a note from that second or that first big paragraph, the expanded view of our culture. That's what it looks like. It's just an expanded view of our culture. And then at the bottom of page 164, he says, in the experience of enjoyment, we, awareness, are tasting the innate joy of our own being.
Yes.
I'll take that in. I'll just drink that for a Wednesday afternoon cocktail. This understanding is concealed in common parlance in a phrase such as, I enjoyed myself at the party last night. The object, event, or person was simply the context in which this enjoyment was invited, courted, and revealed. It was not the party we enjoyed. It was our self that we enjoyed. I love that.
Yes. Beautiful, isn't it? Our self enjoying itself. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I have become an enthusiast with John Deere tractors, and I'm enjoying the tractor. I think I'm enjoying the tractor stuff, but I'm just really enjoying the experience that Bill is having.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's awesome. I can't believe it. I like these old. I mean, I used to think those guys were. Who are these guys that work on these little green tractor things? Now I'm one. It's funny. Okay, so let's keep going on 165. We have about 15 minutes left. And if anyone has any questions or comments, please raise your hand or and speak up. I'm going to look in the chat real quick. Does it need, okay, Rana says, does it need to be said, Does it need to be said by me? Does it need to be said now? What is that, Ronna? Do you want to talk about that? What is that statement saying?
I don't know whether she's talking about silence.
It sounds like a mantra. Yeah, this sounds like a mantra.
Mm.
Yeah, good mantra. Yeah. Landon says, I'm having such a good time in these Wednesday book groups, a collective group of selves enjoying ourselves. Yes.
Oh, that's very good.
Yes. Yeah, it's true. You're going to love the new book series. I'm going to holding it out as a, I'm not telling yet, but you're going to love the new series. It's awesome. Rana,
Hey,
hey.
buddy. Yeah, that it is a mantra, and it's something that just comes to me now, in this whether or not awareness wants something to be said necessarily. It's more of a guide for me. You guys are teaching me that it's okay to get angry. It's okay to have these emotions, but it comes from a different place now that stepping back and allowing awareness to kind of let me know, like, it might need to be said, but does it need to be said right now is the kicker for me. So
Yes, but you
thank
you are awareness, so there's not an awareness speaking to Rona and saying, "Oh, you better not say that."
thank you, Jenny.
Yes, spontaneity. That's also a natural attribute of awareness, and just being spontaneous. And you find as you go further in this teaching, well, what you find is that you don't analyze so much what you're going to do or what you're going to say before you say it. Sometimes if someone asks me a question, I have no idea what the answer is, but somehow it's spoken through my mouth, and I learn at the same time as they do. And that's a natural way of things, really. So
That's beautiful.
no need to judge yourself. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. I think that's important.
Thank you. Thank you. This is all emerging for me, and I appreciate your pointing very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Rana and Jenny. And Andrew had a question at 101. How does awareness enjoy its own being? The mix of awareness and being is hard to grasp for me. Great question.
Yes, and it's really because again, words are a dividing instrument here, because awareness and being are divided into two separate things, but awareness and being are a one. That's what non-duality says. So awareness, if we think of what awareness is that whatever it is, which is experiencing whatever I'm experiencing right now, whatever that is. We don't know what that is. We can't describe it in words. Or if we tried to describe it in words, it would just be a label. Just like X or Y in mathematics, it's a label you give to something you don't know. So that's awareness. Being, that which is, that which has some kind of reality to it. Another word for being is reality. And so that's what non-duality is saying, that awareness and being are the same things. Was how could you have being without awareness? If you contemplate that, very 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 difficult. How could anything, how could there be reality without awareness? So in a sense, they have to be the same.
Hmm. Yeah. And also, awareness experiences joy, bliss, presence, peace, all of those characteristics uh, in
They
just
all are itself.
they,
They
right,
all are. They all are inseparable from itself.
right. But would you say that those are almost even when you say those characteristics, they all seem to have a visceral experience that are connected in the description, or connected in what we perceive those words to mean or say. And awareness is amalgamated, or as is that there it's
Yes, absolutely. What they are in a way is labels for different pathways into that experience of pure awareness. So we listen to a beautiful piece of music, and it transports us to the non-dual reality of ourself, and so that pathway is beauty, and so we label where it takes us as beauty. Similarly, with love, we feel the lack of separation between ourself and all that is, and it's a sense of love. It's a feeling of love. We give it the label love. We have a sudden understanding of something, and we give that the label truth. But if we stay where all of those experiences have taken us to, which is the pure sense of being, the pure awareness that we are, then what we feel is that love, truth, and beauty are all combined together. They're all present in that one experience, along with everything else: joy, freedom, justice, all of those things.
yeah. And Frank actually has a great question here in the chat. Is the idea No, he said at 104, can we say that consciousness is all good, or no?
No, we can't say it's all good. There's no good or bad. That's what non-duality tells us. Good or bad is a division which the mind makes between some situations, some objects, even some people. But it's a division made by the mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's not real. That's not
Yeah.
reality.
And God is everything. God is God, and God's really a loaded name. So just exchange God for presence or awareness or isness. What God is, everything is what God is. The hatred, the ugliness, the beauty, all of these different words, they're all God.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is nothing but God.
Yeah. And then he said, is the idea that God is only good a religious belief, not based on truth? Well, yeah.
It's a conceptualization
Yeah.
which has become a belief, and no conceptualization is ultimately true.
Yeah. It's just a concept. It's something that we gave the formless. We gave a name so that we could control it. Yeah.
Yes.
Good questions, Frank. Frank
Thank
says,
you.
I've heard Rupert say consciousness is all good, that God does not know evil.
That's a concession. It's yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Everything.
it's as we've explained.
Yeah.
Um, you are consciousness. Why divide part of what you are into something that's good and something that's evil? Why divide? You are, we all are. Everything is consciousness. There is nothing that is not consciousness.
So just having we have well, we only went through half of this chapter. Sorry, everyone. We got off on this other discussion. Just to kind of pick up on this, what we're talking about here, is that in the relative sense, there's an energy, there's a negative, there's polarities that that bring agitation or peace in our relative experience. And there's a way to use the understanding that we're speaking of as awareness and presence without giving judgment to a good or a bad or right or a wrong, that allows the energy to divest itself or dissolve itself back into the isness, so that we're not pulled in the agitation experience. We're not experiencing the suffering that is only being created by our perception and our labels and our beliefs and our the trauma that comes from the label that we've laid on top of it. So there's a way to have inner peace just from the understanding of knowing ourselves.
Yes, it's terribly simple, because whenever we're experiencing something like agitation or irritation or anger, which revolves around a separate entity, we just ask, am I at this moment, what do I believe myself to be? Not what I believe myself to be, having studied non-duality for however many years we've studied it. What right now am I feeling myself as? What am I believing myself to be? And instantly any personal element will just vanish. What may be left is impersonal anger, sacred outrage, or whatever. But most of the time, what will be left will be peace.
Wow, that was a great. That's a perfect way to end our time together today, everyone. Kim last had a great idea that we pick this up next week, because we're not in a hurry, and we can start the next book whenever we want. So if Susan is willing, we'll pick this up on page 165, and then we'll go to the end, and then we'll pick up wherever we are from there. How does that sound? Good? All right. Jenny, thank you for being a spontaneous co-host today. This is wonderful. I enjoyed this, what we talked about, and the content of chapter 19, what we covered. And thank you all for participating on the chat. This was awesome. You guys have a beautiful day, and we'll see you